All right, to save your project and your storyboard, I've taken this back to match what we do in the class. So this is my finished animation at 8 inches by 8 inches by 150 pixels per inch. So what we want is we want all of our frames to be just 100% frames. So how do we do that? Well, once we have the animation working the way we want, we go to our timeline and we say now, flatten frames into layers. Click on your very top layer and then click on flatten frames into layers. And it will give you, from the top down, all your layers as flattened frames. So go down to frame 1 and delete every frame that comes before that. Okay, so now I have frame 1 to frame 112. They're all 100% opaque. Your animation should still work the way you want it to. And so on. So now we are going to output it as a GIF. So you're going to say File, Save for Web. This is all at full resolution. Let this load. And you get your GIF, just like we did last time. Okay? But I like to put it on bicubic smoother. I think selective makes the best color choices, and I always have 256 colors. It's the maximum that a GIF can support. That's its main way of simplifying. So right now at these settings, this is 51 megabytes large. And that's because I have so many layers, 112 frames. And it's bigger than it needs to be. It's just showing me a little detail here. If I want to see it fit, I can shrink the size. Okay. And then I say save, and I save it to the desktop as that. So I'm just going to rename this the large one, because in order to get it to load to PhotoBucket, you need it to be under 50 megabytes. So that's why I shrunk my earlier one. All right. Once you have your GIF saved, you're going to save your flattened frames as a TIFF, a TIFF. Just takes a little bit of time for it to save. And you do that by saying File, Save As. These are your final frames, but as a TIFF, select TIFF here instead of Photoshop. And then you always want LZW compression. Okay, now once you have this, we're going to make your storyboard. So we're going to make this into a new file. Basically, you look at your storyboard and you find the one you want in the center. So I want the layer that's the eruption. But before I mess with that, I'm going to delete all my animation frames from my timeline. Otherwise, it's going to mess up my layers a little bit. So I select them all, I drag them all to the trash can. Now I just have flat layers again. So, I'm going to find that center frame, turn it on. That feels like the moment of eruption. So this is a good one. Big epic shot. And now I'm going to grow maybe I'll go a little bit before that. There we go. Now I'm going to grow my canvas around this. So I'm going to say image canvas size. And I'm going to make it 30 inches by 30 inches with white as the extension color. Okay, by doing that, it perfectly places my image in the middle. I'm going to take my background layer, turn it on. So I have a white background that's separate from my panels. And now I'm going to turn on my grid. I can go to View, Show Grid, or I can do Command apostrophe, right? And I'm going to place each frame 1 full inch apart from each other. So what's my first frame for my storyboard? It's just my first frame. So frame 1, but frame 1 is hidden underneath him. So I don't have auto select on, so I'll use the move tool. I select frame 1, and I'm going to move that up into this quadrant here, that area there. Then my next storyboard, it's zoomed in. He's starting to move and smoke, so maybe frame 9 will do that. Oh, gotta make sure I select that layer before I move it up. Gotta move frame over. So I want it an inch above and an inch over, nestled right there. Then frame 9. Actually, frame 9 looks more like, well, let's see. I think that's a good one for here. So, no, I think that's a little too late. So I don't want frame 27. I want frame 9 to be maybe here. It's all about your storytelling. What makes sense for your animation. Okay, and then I need something between frames 1 and 9 for my second storyboard to show that there's a lot of movement going on. Okay. He's crouched and smoldering. He settles down. He looks pretty settled here, so maybe even frame 9 is too late. Maybe I want frame 8 to really show this movement. And then frame 10 I'll use here. He's settling down. Maybe a later one. Building up to this eruption. Yes, that one looks good. Just at 1240 we'll start. Okay. So the next layers after your center frame are actually going to be a lot easier because they're going to show up. So I have this long build up to the eruption in my animation, but in my storyboard it happens pretty quickly, and then I'm going to resolve it pretty quickly. So I have to decide which frame do I want. I think I want maybe the one where I start to add some color fills. So this one, frame 67. I'm going to move that into this spot. And then it will go pretty quickly from there. Then frame 69. And then I'll start just showing the smoke clearing. It's all about showing kind of a clear story. Oops. Actually, I like that one better. Yeah, then show the smoke clearing by the end. All right, so these are the 9 frames that tell the story of my animation from beginning to end. And I might even decide to change frame 1 and instead make that one of my last frames instead, so it feels like more of a loop. It kind of is hazy in that. Okay, turn off all the frames you're not using, and you're going to save this now as your final storyboard. Not as your final frames, we've changed it. going to save it to the desktop. And this is now something we need to make a JPEG of to upload to PhotoBucket. All right, so file, save as, JPEG, desktop. Make sure it's less than 5 megabytes. And now all we have to do is upload them. Okay, now this is 30 by 30 inches by 150 pixels per inch. When we print that at 350 pixels per inch, it will be more like 12 by 12 inches, like an album cover, with very nice resolution. And that's the format I want everyone to try to follow. Okay. So now, what are we actually uploading? We have a few things. We have our sketch. So the JPEG sketch. That's going to be your name and number 1. Then you have your animation, your GIF, whether it's the large one or the small one. If you need a small one, let's look at the differences. So my small one, if I say get info, it's 13 megabytes. My large one, when I say get info, is 53. To fit onto PhotoBucket as a GIF, it has to be under 50 megabytes. So I'm going to have to use my small one. And I can help you reduce yours. So I'm going to use this one. Okay. That doesn't mean it wouldn't work on other sites. It's just PhotoBucket. And then lastly, your finished JPEG of your final storyboard. So those 3 things get uploaded in that order. 1, 2, 3. Your sketch, your animation, your final storyboard. Sketch, animation, final storyboard. And you'll be done with this assignment. And we'll be on to the next element of the class, beyond compositing raster images and talking about vectors. All right.